Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. We are still exploring the matters of adoption. Remember to like, subscribe, and put on the notification bar so that you can get to learn when we are posting new videos. Today, as we explore more on adoption matters, we have a very experienced lawyer who has been dealing with family matters. She'll be able to take us through the legal process of adoption, and I'll give her time to introduce herself.
Thanks, Jani. My name is Leah Kiguatha. I am an advocate, and I run a law firm here in Nairobi where we do family law and real estate law. Asante. Thanks for having me.
Welcome. We continue from where we left with Jackie and Winnie. Take us through the legal process now after the child has been praised from a home by the adoption society, and it's time to go to the court. Take us through that.
Yes, so it appears that you discussed the issue of that you have to stay with the child for 3 months.
Yes.
Once you have been placed with a child, you are required by the law to stay with the child for 3 months before you go to court. And then, so ordinarily it's a good idea on the second month, for example, to go and see a lawyer and give a lawyer instructions so that they are able to ask your adoption society for your documents. And then they can start to get ready so that when the third month ends, everything is ready and you can file your documents in court. So when you go to see a lawyer, the lawyer will ask you, the information, your personal information, name, your ID numbers and those sorts of things. And then something else that the lawyer will ask you is to indicate who will be your guardian ad litem.
Okay.
A guardian ad litem is somebody who works with you through the legal process. They are sort of the eyes of the court and the voice of the child.
Okay.
Because you see, the court cannot come to your house.
Sure.
But the court you will nominate somebody, the court will interview them and see if they are a good person to be the eyes of the court and to be the voice of the child for purposes of the adoption process. So it is good to think through who that will be for you, for your adoption process. It cannot be somebody that is, for example, your subordinate at work. Because they have to be objective. So somebody cannot be afraid they will mwaga their unga.
Yeah.
Like if they say something negative, they lose their job. So it cannot be somebody who's your subordinate at work. It cannot be a relative because relatives, the blood is thicker than water.
Yeah.
So it's usually a good idea either to choose a friend who will be objective and who supports you in your adoption journey, or and who is available to attend court because they have to attend court each time, or ask your adoption society to connect you with a social worker to be your guardian ad litem. So that's the first thing, is that your lawyer will want to know who is your adoption society so that they can ask for your documents and who will be your guardian ad litem. Yes.
Yes, as you've heard from Leah, that now we introduce the other person who is a guardian ad litem, and she has really explained very well that a guardian ad litem acts as the eye of the court. Is that right?
Yes, the eyes of the court and the voice of the child.
Yes. Winnie, Leah, do we have international adoptions right now in Kenya?
No. In 2014, the government declared a moratorium on international adoptions, and so the government is not supportive of international adoptions. The High Court has said that moratorium is illegal, but the tricky thing is that even if the High Court has said it is illegal, the way the process is that an adoption society has to approve you. As you discussed in your previous episode, that an adoption society has to approve you. An adoption society has to make arrangements for all adoptions. So because an adoption societies are licensed every year. So there is no adoption society that is going to take a risk its license if with the same government that licenses it and go against what the government wants.
Sure.
So although the moratorium has been declared illegal by the court, it's very difficult it's unlikely that any society will throw away its license by approving an international adoption.
Okay.
Yeah.
So from Leah, the international adoptions are not taking place as per year and now. But previously, it used to happen.
Yeah, previously they did, and children found families across seas.
Okay.
Because the important thing is that children belong in families.
Okay.
Children belong in families.
Sure,
I know we have our feelings about what type of families, mixed race families, we don't really feel, like it's such a good thing. But whatever you feel about it, in the continuum of care between, a child should grow up in its own family.
Sure.
Ideally.
Sure.
But if the child cannot grow up in its own family, it is better for them to be in a family of whatever color or description than to be in an institution.
Yeah.
You see, so right now, the international adoptions are not happening, but local adoptions are happening. When sometimes people say there is a ban on adoptions, there is no ban on adoptions.
Yeah.
There's a ban on international adoption by the government, but local adoptions are happening, and children are still finding families within Kenya.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What happens, Leah, when a child is adopted? They get to teenage, they become rebellious like any other child, like my child or any other child, and this adoptive parent says, I would want to take back the child from where she came from.
Legally, you can't. The other day, my son is 7. And if he watches this video, he'll be very upset with me because he was coming and squeezing next to me on a chair, and I said, you can't fit.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm not trying to fit on the chair, I'm trying to go back into your stomach.
Okay.
So I said, you can't.
That is funny. Okay.
So the same way you can't go back, you can't return a child who has become rebellious to your stomach where they came from, or if they are your biological child. It's the same way you can't return a child whom you have adopted to the children's home. They no longer belong in the children's home. They belong to you. So whatever you would have done with a rebellious biological child, it's the same way you will deal with a rebellious teenage child who is an adopted child.
Wow.
Yeah, you just have to deal with it the same way.
Yeah. So if you're out there thinking of returning a child to the children's home you picked a child from, then as per the laws of Kenya, it's impossible.
Yeah,
Very
you'd
impossible.
have to figure out if the same way you can't return your biological child.
To the stomach.
It's the same way, which is where they came from. It's the same way that you can't return an adopted child. But Jenny, we didn't finish the story we didn't finish the journey through the court process.
Yes.
And so once you have that first meeting with your lawyer, they'll ask you who will be your guardian ad litem, and then they'll ask you which is your society, so that they can write to your society. They'll write to your society and ask for your documents and the documents of the child. And so then they will then draft the application for court and put the application in court. Then once they put the application in court, they pursue a date. They request the court for a date. We used to file and get a date. And that's how I used to say file. We used to say we file and get a date. Now things have changed. You don't file and get a date, you file and pursue a date.
Wow, okay.
You run after a date. You run after a date. And because with COVID, systems have changed, but I'm sure things will fall in place. And so then so the court will give you a date for the first hearing. And at the first hearing, what the court will do is to confirm that the person you have proposed to be a guardian ad litem for the child will be an appropriate guardian ad litem. So that first hearing is where the court interviews the guardian ad litem to confirm that they know what they are doing and they know what their responsibility is to the child and to the court. At that first hearing also, the court will order the Director of Children's Services, which is now a devolved function. The Director of Children's Services office nearest to you, usually the county, at the county level, to investigate you and file a report. So after that first hearing, what happens is that the court will then the court will give you an order saying I appoint so and so if they have been found to be a fit guardian ad litem,
Yeah.
and also they will give the order will also say that the director of children's services can investigate you.
Okay.
So that order is taken together with your bundle of documents that have been filed in court to your county director of children's services, the county director of children's services nearest to you.
Okay.
And the county director will ask you to come in and do an interview. Then they will also do a home visit to be able to see your home situation, after which they write a report.
Okay.
Then once that report is written, it is then submitted to court. Okay? And then when it's submitted to court, then you ask the court for another date for the hearing, for the second hearing of the adoption.
Okay.
And then at the second hearing, what the court will do is that it will consider the report of your guardian ad litem, because your guardian ad litem will be required to write a report. It will also consider the report of the director of children's services, as well as the report of your adoption society, if that had not already been considered at the first instance. And then it will also listen to the submissions of your lawyer as the lawyer summarizes the case.
Okay.
And then after that, the court will then, if everything is in place, if the court feels there is missing information, the court will say, give me this information or give me that information, and come back on another date. But if everything is in place, you are then given a date for the decision. Then you come back on that date, or your lawyer attends on your behalf, and the court gives you the decision and tells you whether it has allowed you to adopt the child, or if it needs any further information. And then after the decision, which we call the judgment, the next process is really paperwork. Yes, so you process the adoption order, which is from the court, the adoption certificate, which you get from Sharia House after you get the order, and then the post-adoption birth certificate. In 2012, the Constitutional Court said that adopted children should also get birth certificates. Yes, so you first get the adoption order, and then the adoption certificate, and then you get the post-adoption birth certificate, which shows that the adoptive parents are the parents of the child.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's the process in a nutshell.
Okay. We've heard that as per year now, the adoptive parent is able to get a birth certificate.
And that's very important.
And does this birth certificate have the adoptive parents' names?
Yes, it has the adoptive parents' names.
As in the biological?
Yes, name of mother, the adoptive parent. Name of father, the adoptive father.
Does it have anything to show that the child is adopted?
No, there's nothing to show the child is adopted. The only people who end up knowing the child is adopted is when you apply for a passport at immigration.
Okay.
Immigration is able to tell. So I want to tell adoptive parents who have this post-adoption birth certificate. When you go to immigration, please present also the adoption order and the adoption certificate. Because when you don't do that, immigration can tell it's an adoption. And if you don't provide the other documents, they think that you're not being truthful. So it's only the Department of Immigration that is able to tell that this is a post-adoption birth certificate. Otherwise, it looks like any other birth certificate for all children.
Wow.
And I think it's very exciting.
It is.
And for a long time, it didn't exist.
Yeah.
Now people take it for granted.
Yeah.
When I call a client when we finish, and they say, I have your birth certificate, and I'm so excited. And they're wondering, why am I excited? Of course, I expected you to get the birth certificate, but they have no idea that for many, many years, we had to explain to parents that the adoption certificate is the final document. The government has not put in place measures to give adopted children birth certificates. It was so hard, but now we now take it for granted. I haven't started to take it for granted myself. Every time I see that post-adoption birth certificate, I think it's a very, very exciting thing that we didn't have for a long time.
Yeah, and I can imagine those who adopted young children, and they were like now the CBC. You must have a birth certificate.
Exactly. Yep.
Previously, I don't know what used to happen when you take a child to school and you are told to produce a birth certificate.
The crisis used to come in class 8. in class 8. So people would be okay. Then in class 8, that's when the crisis would arise. Because you needed a birth certificate for class 8. Registration for KCBE.
How long does it take for the adoption process to be through?
The court process?
Yes.
For the court process, if everything is going well, I usually tell people, give yourself 9 to 12 months. So that at the end of those 9 to 12 months, you have not only your adoption, but also your sanity. Because if you...
Your sanity is important.
Your sanity is important because you need your sanity to raise this child. If you wanted to take a shorter time, you could, but you'll concern with everybody. You concern with your lawyer. Because you want it to happen fast. You'll concern with the director of children. Everybody will. You'll just concern with everybody. I don't know how you say concern in English. You'll fight with everybody,
that's
and
the
you
word.
will lose your mind. Because things happen. A few, like public holidays come up, which had not been gazetted previously. Courts have other duties where they go out on official duties and then they don't sit on the day that your adoption was expected to be had, and now you have to take another date. And the diary is already full, so you are taking a date another 2-3 months away. So for you to have your sanity and also the adoption, give yourself 9 to 12 months. Within that time, even if a court does not sit, if the High Court is on vacation, within that time you should be able to finish if there are no problems. And then if there are problems, then it also takes longer. So I usually say give yourself 9 to 12 months, which will allow you to have not only the adoption, but also your sanity at the end of it all, and you'll preserve your relationships. You'll not burn all the bridges as you go along.
So patience is key. As you start the court process, as an adoptive parent, you need to be patient. As she has said, your sanity is key. What happens? I asked Jackie and Winnie, what happens if we are in the court process and then biological parent appears? What happens at that point?
If the biological parent appears, they would have to ask the court they would have to come to court and explain to the court what it is that they want. And the court will make a decision based on the circumstances of the case. Because if before you start the adoption, unless you've had the child for 3 years, the biological parent can actually appear, and the child, if they establish the reasons why they would want the child back, if you have not started the court process, the child can be returned to them. But if you have started the court process, only the court can make a decision on what happens to the child now that the biological parent has appeared. They'd have to show how did the child end up in the system, because people adopt children who are already in the system, who are in children's homes, have been committed to those homes, were abandoned, and so the biological parent would have to explain how is it, and of course prove that this is their child.
Can they order for a DNA test?
Yes, the court can order for DNA. To make sure, because the court's main interest is safeguarding the interests of the child. So the issue is to protect the child. That's what you need to do. So whatever it takes to protect the child, the court will facilitate and make orders that ensure that the child is protected.
Wow. Throughout the adoption process, it's always about the best interest of the child, if I get your point.
And in any matter concerning a child, that's what the Children's Act says, that's what the Constitution says, that's what the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child says, the African Charter on the Rights of Children. The best interests of the child are the paramount consideration. So there's a lot of usually pushing and pulling with people claiming their rights. Parental rights are, for example. Parental rights are recognized, but the best interest of the child is superior to the parental rights.
How are Kenyans adopting? Are they embracing adoption?
Yes, Kenyans have embraced adoption. I have to say that Kenyans have embraced adoption, and at all levels of the society, adoption has been embraced. It's been a very interesting, because I've done this since 2004. I make my people
Wow.
I make people in my office laugh because I ask them, where were you in 2004 when I did my
2004.
first adoption?
Okay, that's a long time.
Yeah, so there's been a very interesting progression, and people have embraced. Kenyans have embraced adoption. The process has been streamlined.
Yeah.
And the only issue is that there are still more children than parents who are willing to adopt,
Okay.
especially boys. There are more boys
Very
that
sad.
are abandoned
Yeah.
than families or parents that are willing to adopt them. So as much as Kenyans have embraced adoption, there
Leah, earlier on you're telling me about the adoption of the boy child in Kenya. Can you expound on that?
boys who are abandoned, for example, given up for adoption, boys are in a very precarious situation, and I don't understand people who call themselves campaigners for the boy child, why they are not picking up the cause of boys without families. Because first, there are more boys abandoned than girls.
Sure.
I don't know whether people think it's going to be harder to raise a boy or a girl will be easier to raise. So there are more boys abandoned than girls.
Yeah.
And then the law provides that a single woman can adopt a girl, but if she wants to adopt a boy, she must show special circumstances.
Okay.
So maybe she's raising another child or something like that, which means that when a single woman who doesn't have another child wants to adopt, she gets a girl. The law allows single men to adopt boys, but there are not that many single men, as many single men as single women adopting. And then the law allows couples to either adopt married couples to either adopt a boy or a girl. Even in those situations, people usually choose girls.
Yeah.
So what it means is that actually if you want a girl, you have to wait because there are less girls in the system than boys. Now this has always been the case, but in the past boys would be adopted by international adopters.
Yeah.
Why? Because the rules of international adoption is that you have to show that the child didn't have a chance.
Yeah.
They have not been adopted in their country. So it will be boys over the age of 2 years who have stayed in the home, they have not found a Kenyan family. Those are the boys who would be placed with international families. But international adoptions were stopped, which means those boys are still in their homes.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And then now the children's bill is actually, the children's bill of 2021 is actually proposing to remove or to discontinue adoption by men, single men.
Really?
Single men, if the children's bill to 2021 goes through, single Kenyan men will not be able to adopt at all. That is the proposal in the bill. So where will these boys go? So when you talk about boy child and you're talking about other issues, the boy child you should be thinking about is that boy child who will grow up without a family. We really need to change our laws and policies and think about what is in the best interests of children, so that these boys also have a chance to find a family. So that's where we are with boys, and it's a very unfortunate situation.
Yeah. Viewers, as lawyer said, it's very unfortunate that the boy child is still being sidelined. And if we are talking about the well-being of the best interest of the child, then we also we need to consider all the genders, both male and female. Leah, tell us, the viewers here may be asking, must I have a lawyer for me to go through the legal process of adoption?
So Johnny, as a lawyer, of course, my answer will be yes.
Yeah.
It is important that you have a lawyer.
Yes.
And I'm finding that self-representation, I was always a big advocate for self-representation, but I'm having a change of heart. And let me tell you why. Because I found that the people who can self-represent, who have the ability to self-represent, many of them can afford lawyers.
Okay.
They just do not want to get a lawyer.
Yeah.
And then the people who cannot self-represent, because there are things that are technical.
Sure.
You require a certain level of certain level of education, a certain level of interaction with the formal system. So if you don't have that and you want to self-represent, you will not be able to self-represent because it's a very formal system. And so the people who cannot, who do not have the capacity to self-represent, are the ones, the people who cannot afford lawyers do not have the capacity to self-represent.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a very tricky situation in that the people who can afford lawyers do not want to hire lawyers, but the people who cannot afford lawyers need lawyers for purposes of taking them through the court process. So I mean, the way my thinking is going is that is to say yes, you can self-represent if you know what you are doing.
Yeah.
But when we push self-representation, what I have found is that we are getting a lot of people who don't have the capacity to self-represent now going for self-representation because it has been sold as something that they can do. And then they get stuck in the system and they have such difficulties. So yes, you can self-represent if you know what to do. It is possible. There is no bar to self-representation. You can do it.
We've been exploring matters adoption in Kenya, and as we've heard from the lawyer and the Adoption Society, the best place for a child to grow in is in a family setup. So I encourage all of us here to find a place and adopt one child, give him a home, give him an identity. It is also good to look at the plight of the boy child because he's left out on matters adoption. Kindly remember to like, subscribe, and put on the notification bell so that you can know when we are posting such videos. From all of us here, we say
bye.
See you next time.